My name is Natalie Cross, and I'm about to tell you how a pair of jeans cost my old company $50 million. I was 34, a senior data solutions architect at Quantum Ridge Solutions in Denver. And I thought I had it made. 5 years of grinding through their corporate machinery, building systems that actually worked while watching mediocre men take credit for everything. But that Monday morning changed everything. I'd been preparing for weeks to present our new predictive analytics module to Continuum Dynamics, an aerospace manufacturer looking to revolutionize their supply chain management. $50 million hung in the balance, and I'd poured my soul into every line of code, every algorithm, every integration point. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m., and I was ready to seal the deal. I walked into the office that morning wearing my lucky dark wash jeans, a crisp white blazer, and confidence that could power the entire building. The jeans weren't ratty or inappropriate, they were designer, well-fitted, and paired with professional pieces. In the tech world, this was standard attire. Hell, our CEO wore hoodies to board meetings. But Douglas Renner had other plans. Douglas was my department head, a 40-something corporate climber who'd never written a line of code in his life, but somehow managed to position himself as the gatekeeper of every important project. He spotted me in the hallway, his eyes scanning my outfit like a TSA agent looking for contraband. "Natalie," he said, his voice dripping with manufactured authority. "What exactly do you think you're wearing?" I glanced down at my outfit, genuinely confused. Professional attire for a client presentation? Jeans. The word fell from his lips like an accusation. "You're about to represent Quantum Ridge Solutions to our most important client in jeans." The hallway suddenly felt smaller, other employees slowing their pace to catch the drama. I felt my cheeks burn, but I kept my voice steady. "Douglas, this is appropriate business casual. The client presentation is about the technology, not happening." He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "I can't have you embarrassing the company. Go home, change into something professional, and maybe I'll consider letting you observe the presentation." The words hit me like a physical blow. Observe? After months of development, after building something revolutionary, I was being demoted to observer status because of my choice in pants. "This module is my project," I said, my voice tight with barely controlled anger. "I built the entire system from the ground up. The client is expecting to see the architect, not..." "The client is expecting to see professionals," Douglas interrupted, his voice rising just enough for the growing audience of coworkers to hear. "I'll be handling the presentation myself. Consider this a learning opportunity about appropriate workplace attire." I stood there, watching him walk away, my hands clenched into fists. Around me, colleagues avoided eye contact, suddenly fascinated by their phones or the floor tiles. The humiliation was complete and public. But as I watched Douglas disappear into his office, already pulling up my presentation files on his computer, something crystallized in my mind. This wasn't just about jeans. This was about power, control, and the systematic undermining of anyone who threatened his position. Douglas was about to steal my work, present it as his own, and claim credit for the $50 million contract I'd spent months pursuing. I didn't go home to change. Instead, I walked straight out of the building and into the Denver morning, my mind already racing with possibilities. The Bison Brew coffee shop was 3 blocks from Quantum Ridge, a local favorite that served as an unofficial satellite office for half the tech workers in the area. I claimed a corner table, ordered a double espresso, and pulled out my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for exactly 3 seconds before I opened Signal and typed a message to Casey Miller, my partner in crime and the best UX designer I'd ever worked with. Time to activate the nuclear option. Casey's response came back immediately, a gif of a rocket launching, followed by, "I've been waiting for this day." We'd talked about it before, in hypothetical terms over late-night debugging sessions and weekend coffee runs. What would we do if Quantum Ridge finally pushed too far? We'd sketched out contingency plans, mapped out the technology we'd need, even discussed potential clients. But it had always been theoretical. a fantasy we entertained between deadlines. Now it was real. I opened my laptop and began typing, my fingers moving with surgical precision. The first step was simple: establish Novalink Systems, LLC. Colorado's online business registration system made it surprisingly easy. 20 minutes and a few $100s later, I had a company. The second step was more complex. I needed the prototype. Over the past year, Casey and I had been working on a side project during our own time. A more elegant, streamlined version of the analytics module I'd built for Quantum Ridge. We'd used our own resources, our own computers, our own late nights. Technically, it belonged to us, not to the company. But technically and legally were two different things, and I needed to be careful. I opened a new browser tab and navigated to the GitHub repository where our prototype lived. The code was clean, efficient, and about 6 months ahead of what I'd been building at Quantum Ridge. We'd always planned to polish it up someday, maybe turn it into a proper product. Someday had just arrived ahead of schedule. My phone buzzed. Casey again. Coffee shop or your place? Bison Brew, corner table, bring your laptop. 20 minutes later, Casey slid into the chair across from me. Laptop bag slung over her shoulder and a wild gleam in her eyes. Casey was 29, brilliant, and had been passed over for promotion 3 times at Quantum Ridge despite being the most talented designer in the building. She had short auburn hair that she constantly ran her fingers through when she was thinking, and a smile that could convince anyone to join a revolution. So, she said, setting down her laptop, we're really doing this. Douglas just stole my presentation and banned me from the client meeting because of my jeans, I said. I'm not just doing this, I'm going to destroy him. Casey's smile widened. I've been updating our prototype. The interface is clean, the back end is solid, and the analytics engine is about 3 times faster than what Quantum Ridge has been trying to build. How fast can we get it client ready? Define client ready. Good enough to demonstrate to Continuum Dynamics before Douglas crashes and burns with his stolen presentation. Casey leaned back in her chair, fingers already flying across her keyboard. Give me 72 hours. I pulled up LinkedIn on my phone and searched for Continuum Dynamics. The company was impressive: aerospace manufacturing, defense contracts, operations in 12 countries. The kind of client that could make or break a technology company. I scrolled through their leadership team until I found what I was looking for: Marcus Albright, Chief Technology Officer. Marcus was 52, former Air Force, graduate of MIT and Stanford. His LinkedIn profile was sparse but impressive: 20 years in aerospace technology, patents in predictive maintenance systems, and a reputation for cutting through corporate bullshit to get to the heart of technical problems. I need an introduction to Marcus Albright, I said. Casey looked up from her screen. The CTO at Continuum. That's a tall order. I know someone who might help. Elliot Graves was a venture capitalist who tried to recruit me 6 months earlier. I'd turned him down, choosing to stay loyal to Quantum Ridge. But he'd left his card and an open invitation to coffee. At the time, I'd filed it away as a professional courtesy. Now it might be my secret weapon. I pulled up Elliot's contact information and crafted a careful message. Remember that coffee invitation? I'm ready to talk about that new opportunity. His response came back within minutes. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Preston Pour. Bring your laptop. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't going to Quantum Ridge. I wasn't going to sit in my cubicle and pretend everything was normal while Douglas prepared to present my work to our biggest client. Instead, I was going to war. I spent the morning refining our prototype, testing edge cases, and polishing the user interface. Casey worked remotely, pushing updates to our shared repository faster than I could review them. By noon, we had something that wasn't just functional, it was elegant. Pressed and Pour was exactly the kind of place where Denver's tech elite came to make deals. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, and coffee that cost more than most people's lunch. I arrived early, claimed a table in the back corner, and waited. Elliot appeared at exactly 2 o'clock, looking like he'd stepped out of a venture capital catalog. Tailored suit, expensive watch, smartphone permanently attached to his hand. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 38, with the kind of confident swagger that came from writing million-dollar checks. "Natalie," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I have to admit, I'm curious. 6 months ago, you couldn't wait to get away from me, and now you're asking for coffee." 6 months ago, I was loyal to Quantum Ridge, I said. Yesterday, they fired me for wearing jeans. Elliot's eyebrows shot up. They what? Humiliated me in front of half the office, banned me from presenting to our biggest client, and stole my presentation so the department head could take credit for my work. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. So I built something better. What I showed him wasn't just a prototype. It was a fully functional analytics platform that could process real-time data streams, identify patterns, and generate actionable insights faster than anything on the market. The interface was intuitive. The visualizations were stunning, and the underlying algorithms were revolutionary. Elliot leaned forward, his investor persona dropping away as he focused on the screen. "This is remarkable. How long did this take you to build?" "About a year of nights and weekends," I said. "But the real version, the one that Quantum Ridge is going to present to Continuum Dynamics, is about 6 months behind this." "Show me the comparison." I pulled up a side-by-side demonstration. On the left, our prototype processing a massive data set in real time, generating insights and recommendations with surgical precision. On the right, a simulation of what Quantum Ridge's system would look like, slower, clunkier, and prone to the kind of errors that could cost a client millions. "When is their presentation?" Elliot asked. "Tomorrow afternoon." "And you want to beat them to the punch." "I want to show Continuum Dynamics what a real solution looks like before they waste their time with corporate theater." Elliot leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You know, I've been looking for exactly this kind of opportunity. A proven team, cutting-edge technology, and a David versus Goliath story that writes itself. I'm not looking for investment," I said. "I'm looking for an introduction to Marcus Albright." "To Marcus Albright." Elliot pulled out his phone and started typing. "Marcus and I go way back. We were roommates at MIT, and I helped fund his last startup before he went corporate. He's brilliant, demanding, and he hates wasting time with vendors who can't deliver." "Perfect. Can you get me in front of him?" "I can do better than that." Elliot's phone buzzed with a response. Marcus is frustrated with the current batch of proposals they've been seeing. Apparently, everyone's been showing him PowerPoint presentations instead of actual working technology. "When can we meet?" "Tonight, 7 o'clock, at his office." "But Natalie." Elliot's expression became serious. "Marcus doesn't suffer fools. If you're going to do this, you better be ready to deliver." I closed my laptop and stood up. I've been ready for 5 years. That evening, I found myself in the sleek lobby of Continuum Dynamics, waiting for the elevator that would take me to the executive floor. The building was impressive, glass and steel reaching toward the Denver skyline, with the kind of modern architecture that screamed success and innovation. Casey had opted to stay at her apartment, continuing to refine the prototype while I handled the pitch. We'd agreed that this first meeting should be intimate, focused, and personal. If Marcus was impressed, we'd bring in the full team for the technical deep dive. The elevator doors opened on the 20th floor, revealing a workspace that looked more like a high-end laboratory than a traditional office. Engineers in casual clothes worked at standing desks. Whiteboards covered in equations and diagrams lined the walls, and the air hummed with the kind of focused energy that came from people solving complex problems. Marcus Albright's office was at the end of the hall, its glass walls offering a panoramic view of the Rocky Mountains. He was exactly what I'd expected, tall, lean, with graying hair and the kind of intense focus that came from 20 years of turning theoretical concepts into reality. "Natalie Cross," he said, standing up as I entered. "Elliot says you have something interesting to show me." "I have something that works," I said, setting my laptop on his conference table. No slides, no marketing speak, just functioning technology. Marcus smiled. That's exactly what I want to hear. Show me. I opened the laptop and launched our demonstration. For the next 30 minutes, I walked Marcus through every aspect of our system: real-time data processing, predictive analytics, automated decision-making, and seamless integration with existing enterprise systems. But more than that, I showed him how it solved the specific problems that Continuum Dynamics faced. Your supply chain optimization challenge, I said, pulling up a simulation based on publicly available data about aerospace manufacturing. Current systems can identify bottlenecks after they occur. Our system predicts them 72 hours in advance and automatically generates alternative sourcing strategies. Marcus leaned forward, his engineer's mind clearly engaged. Show me the predictive accuracy. I pulled up our testing results, months of validation against real-world scenarios, with accuracy rates that exceeded industry standards by significant margins. 94% accuracy in controlled testing, 87% in real-world applications. That's impressive, Marcus said. But I'm curious about something. If you built this, why are you here instead of at Quantum Ridge? I met his eyes directly. Because yesterday, Quantum Ridge's department head decided that my genes were more important than my technology. He banned me from presenting to you, stole my work, and is planning to claim credit for a system that's inferior to what you're looking at right now. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. And you decided to compete with them directly. I decided to show you what you're actually buying before you make a $50 million mistake. When is their presentation? Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Natalie, I'm going to be frank with you. We've been looking at this problem for 6 months. We've seen presentations from every major technology company in the region. And they've all shown us the same thing: elaborate PowerPoint decks and promises to deliver something that might work in 18 months. He turned back to face me. What you've shown me tonight is the first working solution I've seen. It's not perfect, but it's functional, it's innovative, and it addresses our specific needs. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm very interested in moving forward with NovaLink systems, but I need to see a full technical demonstration, complete with stress testing, integration protocols, and implementation timelines. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Bring your team, bring your best demonstration, and be prepared to answer the detailed technical questions. I packed up my laptop, my mind already racing with everything Casey and I needed to accomplish in the next 12 hours. We'll be ready. As I waited for the elevator, Marcus called out from his office doorway, Natalie? I turned back. Wear whatever makes you comfortable. We care about results, not dress codes. The elevator doors closed, and I allowed myself a moment of pure, unadulterated satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. I called Casey from the parking garage. We're on. Please tell me you mean what I think you mean. Full technical demonstration tomorrow morning at 9. Marcus Albright, CTO of Continuum Dynamics, wants to see our complete system in action. Holy shit. My thoughts exactly. How's the prototype? Solid. I've been running stress tests all evening, and it's handling everything I throw at it. But Natalie, we need more than just the two of us for a presentation this size. I know. I've been thinking about that. I had someone in mind, Jonas Price, a freelance developer who'd been working with startups around Denver for the past 3 years. Jonas was brilliant, slightly eccentric, and had a reputation for pulling all-nighters that produced miraculous results. More importantly, he'd been complaining for months about the corporate bureaucracy that was stifling innovation in the local tech scene. I'm going to call Jonas, I said. Think he'd be interested in joining a revolution? For equity in a company that's about to steal a $50 million contract from Quantum Ridge, I think he'd work for free. Casey was right. Jonas answered on the second ring, and after a brief explanation of our situation, he agreed to meet us at Casey's apartment in an hour. We had 12 hours to prepare for the most important presentation of our careers. Casey's apartment was a converted loft in the River North Art District, with exposed brick walls, high ceilings, and enough space to spread out our equipment. By 10 o'clock, we had transformed her living room into a makeshift war room. Laptops, monitors, cables, and whiteboards covered every available surface. Jonas arrived with 3 energy drinks and a duffel bag full of hardware. He was 28, thin as a rail, with the kind of pale complexion that came from spending more time with computers than with sunlight. But his eyes were sharp, and his fingers moved across keyboards with the precision of a concert pianist. "So," he said, settling into Casey's desk chair, "we're going to humiliate Quantum Ridge and steal their biggest client." "That's the plan," I said. "I'm in." For the next 8 hours, we worked with the kind of focused intensity that I'd never experienced in a corporate environment. No meetings, no status reports, no bureaucratic overhead, just 3 people building something extraordinary. Casey refined the user interface, making it more intuitive and visually compelling. Jonas strengthened the back-end infrastructure, adding redundancy and optimization that would impress even the most demanding technical audience. I focused on the demonstration itself, crafting a narrative that would showcase our system's capabilities while highlighting the specific problems it solved for continuum dynamics. By 6 in the morning, we had something that was more than just a prototype. It was a production-ready system that could handle enterprise-scale deployments. "I need to go home and shower," Casey said, stretching her arms above her head. "And maybe put on something that doesn't smell like pizza and desperation." "Good idea," I said. "Let's meet at Continuum at 8:30. As I drove home through the early morning Denver traffic, I couldn't help but think about what was happening at Quantum Ridge. Douglas was probably in his office, reviewing my stolen presentation materials, preparing to claim credit for work he'd never understood. He had no idea that his biggest client was about to see a demonstration that would make his presentation look like a high school science project. I showered, put on a professional outfit that felt like armor, and made a decision that felt both petty and perfect. I opened my closet and pulled out the same jeans I'd been wearing when Douglas humiliated me. They were going in my bag, just in case. Continuum dynamics looked different in the morning light, more imposing, more serious, more like the kind of place where $50 million decisions were made. Casey and Jonas were waiting in the lobby, both of them looking nervous but determined. "Ready?" I asked. "Let's do this." Casey said. Marcus met us at the elevator, dressed in khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He led us to a conference room that looked like mission control at NASA. Massive screens, advanced audiovisual equipment, and enough technological firepower to launch a space mission. "Impressive setup," Jonas murmured. "We believe in using the right tools for the job," Marcus said. "I've invited a few members of my team to observe the demonstration. I hope that's acceptable." 3 other people filed into the room. Kevin Lund, a systems architect who looked like he'd stepped out of a cybersecurity textbook. Maria Santos, a data scientist with a PhD from Caltech. And David Kim, a project manager who'd been tasked with evaluating all the proposals. "Before we begin," Marcus said, "I want to be clear about what we're looking for. We need a system that can process real-time data from multiple sources, identify patterns and anomalies, generate predictive insights, and integrate seamlessly with our existing enterprise infrastructure. We've seen a lot of promises, but we need proof that your solution can deliver." I looked at Casey and Jonas, seeing my own determination reflected in their faces. "We're not here to make promises," I said. "We're here to show you exactly what our system can do." I opened my laptop and connected it to the room's display system. Within seconds, our interface appeared on the massive screen, clean, intuitive, and professional. "What you're seeing is Novalink's integrated analytics platform." I began. "It's not a prototype or a concept. It's a fully functional system that we've been testing and refining for the past year." I launched into the demonstration, but this wasn't a typical corporate presentation. Instead of slides and bullet points, I showed them real functionality. Live data processing, real-time analytics, predictive modeling that generated actionable insights within seconds. "Let me show you how this applies to your specific challenges," I said, pulling up a simulation based on aerospace manufacturing data. Your supply chain involves thousands of components from hundreds of suppliers across multiple continents. Traditional systems can tell you when something goes wrong. Our system tells you what's going to go wrong, when it's going to happen, and what you can do to prevent it. I clicked through a series of scenarios, each one demonstrating how our system could save Continuum Dynamics millions of dollars by preventing problems before they occurred. Kevin Lund leaned forward. Can you show us the underlying architecture? Jonas took over, walking them through the technical details with the kind of expertise that only came from building systems from the ground up. Database optimization, API integration, scalability planning, security protocols. He answered every question with precision and depth. Maria Santos was focused on the analytics engine. What's your accuracy rate on predictive modeling? Casey pulled up our testing results, showing months of validation data that proved our system's reliability. 94% accuracy in controlled environments, 87% in real-world applications, with continuous learning algorithms that improve performance over time. For 90 minutes, we answered every question they threw at us. Technical specifications, implementation timelines, support structures, cost projections. We had answers for everything because we'd built everything ourselves. Finally, Marcus stood up. This is exactly what we've been looking for. The question is, can you deliver a full implementation in the timeline we need? What's your timeline? I asked. 6 months for Phase 1 deployment, 12 months for full integration across all divisions. I looked at Casey and Jonas, seeing confidence in their expressions. We can do that. Then let's talk about next steps, Marcus said. I'll need a formal proposal, including technical specifications, implementation plan, and pricing structure. Can you have that ready by the end of the week? Absolutely. As we packed up our equipment, David Kim approached me. I have to ask, why leave Quantum Ridge to start your own company? That's a significant risk. I smiled, thinking about Douglas and his stolen presentation. Sometimes the biggest risk is staying where you are. We left Continuum Dynamics with a verbal commitment and a clear path forward. As we walked to the parking garage, Casey grabbed my arm. I can't believe that just happened, she said. We actually did it. We're not done yet, I said. We still need to formalize the proposal and close the deal. When is Douglas's presentation? Jonas asked. I checked my watch. In about 3 hours. Think we should send him a good luck message? I think we should let him surprise himself. That afternoon, while Douglas was stumbling through his presentation with technology that couldn't deliver on its promises, I was in my apartment writing the proposal that would change everything. The irony wasn't lost on me. While he was claiming credit for my work, I was building something that would make his efforts irrelevant. The proposal took me 2 days to complete, but it was comprehensive, detailed, and compelling. Technical specifications, implementation timelines, cost breakdowns, and risk mitigation strategies. Everything a company would need to make a $50 million decision. I delivered it to Marcus personally on Friday morning, along with a complete technical documentation package and a prototype that they could test in their own environment. This is thorough, Marcus said, flipping through the printed proposal. When can we schedule a final presentation with our executive team? Whenever you're ready. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, I'll need you to present to our CEO, CFO, and board of directors. I felt a flutter of nerves, but I kept my voice steady. We'll be ready. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Casey, Jonas, and I refined our presentation, anticipated questions, and prepared for every possible scenario. By Sunday night, we had a presentation that was flawless, a system that was bulletproof, and a team that was ready to change the world. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that only came with Colorado autumns. I stood in my closet, looking at the professional outfits I'd accumulated over 5 years at Quantum Ridge. Suits, blazers, dress pants, the uniform of corporate conformity. Instead, I reached for the jeans. The same dark wash designer jeans that had started this entire journey. I paired them with a crisp white shirt and a black blazer, creating an outfit that was professional, confident, and unapologetically me. The boardroom at Continuum Dynamics was intimidating. A massive oval table surrounded by leather chairs, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of the Rocky Mountains. The executive team was already seated when we arrived. CEO Jennifer Walsh, a former Air Force general who'd transformed Continuum from a small contractor into a global aerospace leader. CFO Michael Torres, a finance expert who'd helped the company navigate 3 major acquisitions, and 5 board members who collectively represented decades of industry experience. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, standing at the head of the table, "I'd like you to meet the team from Novalink Systems. They've developed what I believe is the most innovative analytics platform I've seen in 20 years. I took a deep breath and began. 3 months ago, I was working for a company that valued presentations over performance, politics over innovation, and conformity over results. They fired me for wearing jeans to a client meeting. Today, I'm here to show you what happens when you prioritize substance over style." I launched into our demonstration with the confidence of someone who knew their product inside and out. Real-time data processing, predictive analytics, automated decision-making, every feature designed to solve specific problems that Continuum Dynamics faced. But this wasn't just a technical presentation. I told them the story of how we'd built the system, the late nights and weekend sessions, the innovative approaches we'd developed to solve complex problems. I showed them what passion looked like when it was channeled into creating something extraordinary. Casey demonstrated the user interface, showing how intuitive and powerful it could be in the hands of their employees. Jonas walked them through the technical architecture, proving that our system was built to scale and built to last. For 2 hours, we answered every question they asked. Integration challenges, security concerns, scalability issues, cost-benefit analyses. We had answers for everything because we'd thought through everything. Finally, Jennifer Walsh stood up. "This is impressive work. The question is, can a 3-person startup handle a project of this magnitude?" "With respect, ma'am," I said, "we've already built the system. We're not promising to deliver something someday. We're offering to implement something that works today." "What's your timeline for full deployment?" 6 months for phase 1, 12 months for complete integration. We're not constrained by corporate bureaucracy or committee decision-making. We can move as fast as you need us to. Jennifer looked around the table, making eye contact with each board member. "I'd like to discuss this privately. Can you give us 30 minutes? We waited in the lobby, the tension almost unbearable. Casey paced near the windows, Jonas stared at his laptop screen, and I tried to project confidence I didn't entirely feel. Finally, Marcus emerged from the boardroom. "They'd like to see you again." We filed back into the room, where Jennifer Walsh was standing at the head of the table with a document in her hands. "Novalink Systems," she said. "Continuum Dynamics would like to offer you a contract for the full implementation of your analytics platform. $50 million. Paid in phases based on delivery milestones." I felt the world stop for a moment. Casey grabbed my arm, her fingernails digging into my jacket. Jonas let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "We accept," I said. The rest of the morning was a blur of handshakes, contract signatures, and champagne toasts. By noon, we had officially become a $50 million company. As we walked to the parking garage, Casey was practically vibrating with excitement. "We did it. We actually did it." "Now the real work begins," I said. "We have to deliver on everything we promised." "We will," Jonas said. "We built the system, we know it works, and we have the best client in the world." I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Douglas Renner, the man who'd started this entire journey by deciding that my genes were more important than my capabilities. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. "Douglas," I said. "It's Natalie Cross." "Natalie?" His voice was surprised, maybe a little nervous. "I heard you left the company." "I did. I started my own company. Actually, Novalink Systems." "Oh." There was a pause. "Well, good luck with that." "Thanks, but I don't think I'll need luck. We just signed a $50 million contract with Continuum Dynamics. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. The same Continuum Dynamics that you presented to last week? I continued. The ones who told you that your solution wasn't technically feasible? How did you? Marcus Albright mentioned that your presentation didn't go well. Something about promising technology that couldn't actually deliver on its promises. Another pause. Longer this time. Douglas, I want to thank you. If you hadn't humiliated me over a pair of jeans, I never would have realized that I was capable of building something better than anything Quantum Ridge could offer. Your petty power play gave me the motivation to create a company that just stole your biggest client. Natalie, Oh, and Douglas? I wore the same jeans to sign the contract. Turns out, results matter more than dress codes. I hung up the phone and looked at Casey and Jonas, both of whom were grinning like maniacs. That felt good, Casey said. That felt perfect, I said. 6 months later, Novalink Systems had grown from 3 people in a loft apartment to 25 people in a proper office space. Our analytics platform was running smoothly across Continuum Dynamics operations, saving them millions of dollars and earning us a reputation as the most innovative technology company in Denver. I was in my office, reviewing our latest performance metrics, when my assistant knocked on the door. There's a reporter here to see you, she said. Jordan Monroe from TechCurrent magazine. She says she's writing a story about startup success stories. I looked down at my outfit, jeans, a casual blouse, and sneakers. Perfect. Send her in. Jordan Monroe was exactly what I'd expected from a tech journalist, mid-30s, sharp eyes, and a digital recorder that she set on my desk before sitting down. I'm writing a story about entrepreneurs who've disrupted established industries, she said. Your company's growth has been remarkable. $50 million in revenue in your first year? It's been an interesting journey, I said. I'm curious about the origin story. What made you leave Quantum Ridge to start your own company? I leaned back in my chair and smiled. They fired me for wearing jeans. Jordan's eyebrows shot up. They what? Well, technically they didn't fire me. They just humiliated me in front of my colleagues, banned me from presenting to our biggest client, and stole my work so that someone else could take credit for it, all because I wore jeans to the office. And that motivated you to start Novalink? That motivated me to build something better than anything they could offer. The jeans were just the catalyst. Jordan scribbled notes on her pad. How did you manage to sign Continuum Dynamics as a client so quickly? We showed them working technology instead of PowerPoint presentations. We solved their problems instead of promising to solve them someday. And we did it all while wearing whatever made us comfortable. The interview continued for another hour, covering everything from our technology to our company culture to our plans for expansion. Jordan was thorough, insightful, and genuinely interested in the story of how 3 people with laptops and determination had built something extraordinary. After she left, I walked to the window and looked out at the Denver skyline. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Douglas Renner was probably sitting in his office, still claiming credit for other people's work, still believing that authority mattered more than ability. I thought about the jeans hanging in my closet at home, the same jeans that had started this entire journey. They weren't just clothing anymore. They were a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply being successful enough that your enemies become irrelevant. My phone buzzed with a text from Casey. TechCurrent wants to put us on their cover. The headline is, Fired for Wearing Jeans, How 3 Entrepreneurs Built a $50 million Company. I smiled and typed back. Perfect. Make sure they get a good photo of our jeans. The story would be published next month, and I had no doubt that Douglas would read it. He'd probably show it to his colleagues, maybe even frame it as a cautionary tale about employees who didn't understand corporate culture. But I knew the truth. This wasn't a story about jeans or dress codes or corporate politics. This was a story about what happened when you stopped asking for permission and started building something that mattered. The TechCurrent article hit the newsstands on a Tuesday morning, and by noon, my phone was ringing nonstop. The headline was even better than Casey had promised. The $50 million Revenge, How Jeans Launched a Tech Empire. The photo they'd chosen was perfect. Me, Casey, and Jonas, standing in front of our office building, all three of us in jeans, arms crossed, looking like we owned the world. Because, in a way, we did. "Natalie, it's Marcus Albright," came the voice through my phone as I tried to catch up on emails between interview requests. "Have you seen the article?" "Hard to miss it," I said. "My assistant says we've gotten 47 interview requests since this morning." "That's not why I'm calling. I just got off the phone with the CEO of Meridian Industries. They want to talk about implementing your system across their entire manufacturing division." Meridian Industries was massive, a Fortune 500 company with operations in 15 countries. The kind of client that could transform a startup into a major player overnight. "What kind of timeline are they looking at?" I asked. 6 months for evaluation, 18 months for full implementation. They're talking about a contract that would make your Continuum deal look like a warm-up. I felt that familiar surge of adrenaline that came with big opportunities. Set up the meeting. Already done. Thursday at 2 o'clock. "But Natalie, they're going to want to see a team that can handle enterprise-scale deployments. You might want to start thinking about expanding." After hanging up, I walked through our office space, looking at the controlled chaos of a growing company. We'd gone from 3 people to 25, but we were still operating with startup mentality, flat hierarchy, rapid decision-making, and a culture that valued results over process. But Marcus was right. If we were going to compete for contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, we needed to look like a company that could handle that kind of responsibility. I called an all-hands meeting for 4 o'clock. "We need to talk about scaling," I said, standing in front of the assembled team. 6 months ago, we were 3 people with a prototype. Today, we're a recognized player in the enterprise analytics space. Tomorrow, we need to be ready to compete with companies that have been doing this for decades. Casey raised her hand. "What exactly are we talking about?" "Meridian Industries wants to meet with us on Thursday. They're looking at a contract that could be worth $200 million. The room went quiet. $200 million was enough to establish us as a major technology company. But it was also enough to destroy us if we couldn't deliver. "Here's what I need from everyone," I continued. "I need you to think about what your department would look like if we were suddenly responsible for deploying our system across a global manufacturing empire. What would you need? What would you hire for? What would you change?" Jonas spoke up from the back of the room. "We'd need a dedicated infrastructure team. The kind of deployment they're talking about would require specialists in cloud architecture, security, and enterprise integration. Marketing would need to shift from startup storytelling to enterprise credibility," added Sarah Chen, our head of marketing. "Case studies, white papers, analyst reports, the kind of documentation that procurement departments expect to see." I nodded, making notes. "I want proposals from every department head by Wednesday morning. We're going to present to Meridian as the company we're becoming, not just the company we are." That night, I stayed in the office until nearly midnight, working on what would become our first strategic plan. It was a surreal experience. 6 months earlier, I'd been a mid-level employee at someone else's company, and now I was planning how to manage hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was in my office, reviewing department proposals, when my assistant knocked on the door. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "He says his name is Douglas Renner." I felt my stomach drop. Douglas was the last person I'd expected to see, and definitely not someone I wanted to deal with while preparing for the biggest pitch of my career. "Send him in," I said. Douglas entered my office looking smaller than I remembered. The corporate swagger was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like desperation. He was wearing an expensive suit, but it hung on him like he'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Natalie," he said, not quite meeting my gaze. "Thank you for seeing me." "What do you want, Douglas?" He sat down across from my desk, his hands fidgeting with a folder he'd brought. "I read the article in TechCurrent. Congratulations on your success." "Is that why you're here? To congratulate me?" "I'm here because I wanted to apologize. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been rehearsing them. What I did to you was wrong. The way I treated you, the way I dismissed your contributions, it was unprofessional and unfair. I leaned back in my chair, studying his face. Go on. After you left, the Continuum presentation was a disaster. The technology didn't work the way you'd designed it, and I couldn't answer their technical questions. They terminated our contract 3 weeks later. I heard about that. The company held me responsible. I was demoted, my budget was cut, and half my team was reassigned to other departments. He opened the folder and pulled out a piece of paper. Last week, they offered me a severance package. I looked at the document he'd placed on my desk. It was a resignation letter, dated 3 days earlier. I'm sorry this happened to you, I said, and I meant it. But I'm not sure what you expect me to do about it. I was hoping you might have a position available. I know it's presumptuous, but I have 20 years of experience in enterprise software, and I understand the corporate clients you're pursuing. The request was so unexpected that I almost laughed. Douglas Renner, the man who'd humiliated me for wearing jeans, was asking me for a job. Douglas, you stole my work and banned me from presenting to my own client. Why would I want to work with you? Because I was wrong, and I'm trying to make it right. He leaned forward, his voice becoming more earnest. I know I can't undo what I did, but I can use my experience to help you avoid the mistakes I made. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city where both our careers had taken such different paths. Douglas had chosen to play corporate politics, to prioritize appearances over substance. I'd chosen to build something real. I appreciate the apology, I said, turning back to face him. But I'm not interested in hiring you. Not because I'm vindictive, but because we've built a culture here that values innovation over hierarchy, results over politics, and authentic contribution over corporate maneuvering. Douglas nodded slowly. I understand. I hope you find something that's a better fit for you, I said. But it won't be here. After he left, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about the strange turns that careers could take. 6 months ago, Douglas had held my professional future in his hands. Now he was asking me to hold his. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a reminder that the best revenge really was living well. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of pressure that came with potentially career-defining moments. The Meridian Industries meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock, and I'd assembled our best team for the presentation. Casey had refined our demonstration to showcase enterprise-scale deployments. Jonas had prepared detailed technical specifications for global implementations, and I'd crafted a presentation that positioned Novalink as the future of industrial analytics. But as I was getting dressed that morning, I faced the same decision I'd faced 6 months earlier. Professional conformity or authentic expression? I chose the jeans. The Meridian Industries headquarters was even more impressive than Continuum Dynamics, a gleaming tower in downtown Denver that housed one of the world's largest manufacturing conglomerates. The executive team waiting for us in their boardroom represented decades of industrial experience and billions of dollars in revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, standing at the head of the massive conference table. 6 months ago, I was fired from my previous job for wearing jeans to a client presentation. Today, I'm here to show you what happens when you prioritize innovation over appearance, substance over style, and results over corporate theater. I launched into our demonstration with the confidence of someone who'd already proven that their approach worked. Real-time analytics, predictive maintenance, supply chain optimization, every feature designed to solve the specific challenges that global manufacturing companies faced. But this presentation was different from our previous pitches. We weren't just selling technology, we were selling a vision of what industrial operations could become when powered by truly intelligent systems. Casey demonstrated how our interface could manage manufacturing operations across multiple time zones. Jonas showed how our architecture could scale to handle millions of data points per second. And I tied it all together with a narrative about transformation and competitive advantage. For 3 hours, we answered every question they asked. Global deployment strategies, regulatory compliance, security protocols, integration with legacy systems. We had answers for everything because we'd built everything with these challenges in mind. Finally, the CEO of Meridian Industries, a woman named Patricia Hawkins who'd spent 30 years transforming traditional manufacturing companies into technology-driven enterprises, stood up. "This is the most impressive presentation I've seen in my career," she said. "You've shown us not just what your technology can do, but how it can fundamentally change the way we operate." "Thank you," I said. "We believe that the future of manufacturing depends on systems that can think, learn, and adapt in real time. I'm prepared to offer you a contract for the full implementation of your platform across our North American operations," Patricia continued. $150 million, with options for global expansion that could bring the total to over $400 million. I felt Casey's hand grip my arm under the table. $400 million would make us one of the largest technology companies in the region. "We accept," I said. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of contract negotiations, implementation timelines, and strategic planning. By 6 o'clock, we had officially become a company with over $500 million in contracted revenue. As we walked to the parking garage, Jonas was shaking his head in disbelief. "I still can't believe this is real." "It's real," Casey said. "We built something that the world needs, and now the world is paying us for it." I pulled out my phone and looked at the contacts list, scrolling past Douglas Renner's name without stopping. There was no need to call him, no need to gloat or explain. The best revenge really was success so complete that your enemies became irrelevant. Instead, I called Marcus Albright. "Marcus, it's Natalie. I wanted to thank you for the introduction to Meridian." "How did it go?" $400 million. There was a pause. "Congratulations. That's extraordinary. It wouldn't have happened without your support. You took a chance on us when we were just 3 people with a prototype." "I took a chance on results," Marcus said. "You delivered on everything you promised, and now you're reaping the rewards." That evening, I sat in my apartment, still wearing the same jeans I'd worn to the biggest business meeting of my life. The contrast wasn't lost on me. 6 months ago, these jeans had been the symbol of my professional downfall. Now they were the symbol of my triumph. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Chen. "TechCurrent wants to do a follow-up story. The headline is, 'From Jeans to Hundreds of Millions, the startup that redefined corporate success.'" I smiled and typed back, "Tell them we're available Monday, and make sure they know we're still wearing jeans." The follow-up article would be published next month, and I had no doubt that it would cement our reputation as the company that had succeeded by refusing to play by traditional corporate rules. We'd built something extraordinary by focusing on what mattered: innovative technology, authentic relationships, and the kind of results that spoke for themselves. But more than that, we'd proven that success didn't require conformity. Sometimes the best way to change an industry was to refuse to look like everyone else in it. I opened my laptop and began typing the email that would go out to our entire team tomorrow morning. "Team, yesterday we signed the largest contract in our company's history. But more importantly, we proved that a company built on innovation, authenticity, and results can compete with anyone in the world. We did it by being ourselves, by focusing on what we do best, and by never apologizing for who we are. The jeans were just the beginning. Now let's change the world." I hit send and closed the laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new ways to prove that success looked different than the corporate world expected. But tonight, I was content to sit in my apartment, wearing the jeans that had started it all, and think about how far we'd come. From a humiliating moment in a corporate hallway to a $500 million technology company, all because someone decided that my clothes mattered more than my capabilities. Douglas Renner had meant to put me in my place. Instead, he'd launched me into orbit, and I was just getting started.